creator of the SOE, which we have released. And Richard should have been with us and is absolutely the one who drives us to do all mad things, including the AAD. And he is not here because he's had his second bout of COVID. And he's at home, and we are all haranguing him so that he gets well. So, but I will ask Richard then to begin his presentation, and then ask Dr. Banerjee. Richard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sunita ji. And
if you are feeling tired or want to chip in, I will chip in. I'm here. Okay?
Yeah, I had my paracetamol also. And thank you, Sunita ji. And it's actually missing the AAD at the right time. And good afternoon. And Dr. Banerjee is with us. She is the person who can list out the species under extinction. And my part is just to, as you have been writing about it, just to put an introduction to this. The latest IPCC report that you all know about and have been speaking about, and there was a session on it there. This is first time the IPCC report actually brought in something different. The impact of climate change on the biodiversity. And as Sunita ji on the day one pointed out that IPCC report also first time brought in the equity issue. So this impact on biodiversity itself is the first time the IPCC report has informed. And what it shows, it clearly shows that global warming and the resultant climate change has pushed already 14% of species on the planet to extinctions, near extinction. And if the temperature...
Richard, can you make it full screen?
Just 1 minute, the slides are not moving.
Yeah,
so,
it's him.
do you have to move the slides, or
he has to move?
You have to move the slides.
Can you make it full screen, Richard?
Can you do full screen also, Richard, please? नहीं, इधर से, हाँ, Richard, यहाँ से ये वाला जो, हाँ, ये वाला, big back, हाँ, बिल्कुल.
Okay. So, according to the latest IPCC report, as I said, that this is first time it brought in the impact on biodiversity.
Richard, sorry, some
Yeah.
problem. Your slides are not moving.
Ah.
I will. Is it moving now?
No, you're still. We can only see the Anil Agarwal dialogue screen.
Richard,
you
you can
move the slides.
You can just close the screen share once and try again.
Maybe close the screen share. Now do again the screen share, Richard. You have the presentation?
Yes, ma'am, I have it.
Now see, move it to the second. Let's see. But Richard, there is a problem. You have made the screen so big. Yes. Reduce it further. Perfect. Perfect. Now go ahead. Thank you, Richard.
Okay. So again, I'm just repeating it. I think we lost it. So 14% of species on the planet are facing extinction. And 47% of all species have lost its population. That is the first sign of an extinction. So this is IPCC. But if you look at it in the last 4 years, there are many studies, and in fact, that includes the world's first ecosystem assessment, also pointed out that the planet is actually undergoing a mass extinction, which also is called the sixth one, because already 5 have taken place and this is the 6th one. And this is what Dr. Banerjee will take us through. But what I am going to actually introduce you is, very soon, maybe by November of this year, we will actually enter into a new epoch, और युग जो बोलते हैं उसी पे, and it's called the Anthropocene or the age of the humans or the मानव युग. ये कली युग, सत्य युग, ये सब तो है ही है. अभी हम we are actually geologically we are going into a we are entering into a new epoch, and that's called the age of the humans. And that's actually is that's at the core of everything that we are talking about today, whether climate change, the global warming, the climate change, and the ultimate actually loss of biodiversity in the planet at a rate that we have never seen before. Just to make a point, at the end of this day, 2 species might have faced extinction. That is the rate of extinction.
Richard, can you hear me?
Yes.
Your slides are not moving, man.
No, I am not moving now. So it will move.
Right. Thank you.
So, okay. So basically, when we actually end this session and this day is over, 2 species might have reached to the or pushed into extinction. That is the rate of extinctions we are talking about. Every day we are losing species that we know. We know that there are 8.7 million species on the planet, but we don't know how many species are there already. So even before we discover, we are losing them. And this rate of extinction, scientists say, and Dr. Banerjee will also bring it in her presentations, that this might be something like that 1,000 to 10,000 times more than the historical extinction rate that we have witnessed. So this is the crisis. And in an ecosystem, every existence has its region, whether it's an ant, an insect, or a myna or a bird, everybody plays a role and all are interrelated. So the moment we lose one species, we don't know its ripple effect. So one way to say that besides the global warming and the climate change, the whole biodiversity, our living world is now undergoing another crisis that we are not able to make sense of, but it's actually an emergency situation. Now let me introduce you to this new age, geological age. It's called the Anthropocene. And to translate it, it's the age of the humans. Now let me start before introducing what it is all about. The total weight of biomass on Earth, that is all the living organisms in all the kingdoms, human, animals, birds, in the forest, outside the forest, below the oceans, on the surface, all of them. इन सारे स्पीसीज का आप बायोमास निकालेंगे तो वो 550 gigatons होता है. And 2019 में we had our first biomass census. Just like your population census we have in every 10 years in India, we had this first biomass census done by the scientists in Israel in collaboration with scientists from across the world. And the census, the first biomass census, had some interesting finding, and I'll just quote one. What is the total weight of humans? सारे जो इंसान है इनका weight कितना होगा? ये 550 gigatons में. 7.6 billion humans account for just 0.01% of all biomass on Earth. 0.01%. I think this is a percent that is almost taken as a nil. Rather, just compare it. Bacteria accounts for 13%. Bacteria, we cannot see them. They're 13%. Plants, the largest, account for the largest amount of the biomass, that is 83%. And all other forms of life, just 5%. And the scientists who did this, who led this study, this census, told me this fascinating. It is definitely striking, our disproportionate place on Earth. It shows us how small we are. But there are some other things also about human, because we are talking about the age of Anthropocene or the age of humans. When you say that कि एक नया युग जो मानव युग के नाम पे जाना जाएगा, इसका मतलब होता है कि we need to know ये मानव कौन है. We are biologically we are called the Homo sapiens. We are the least diverse species on the planet. Actually, we are just one. And we are hardly 3 lakh years old. When the Homo sapiens evolved, there were some 8 other human species were roaming around 3 lakhs years ago. But somehow the Homo sapiens actually just survived, the 8 others also lost. So we don't have any other species. We are just one now. So we are the least diverse. Next, Homo sapiens do not actually operate within their ecosystems. We all know tiger has its ecosystems, every species has its own ecosystem, and we all know that. But humans actually don't have an ecosystem like other species. We are rather a gated community without an ecological sense of being. You can say that, humans like this gated communities in Delhi or Gurugram kind of things. We are just something else, a different species. Then we don't have an ecological niche also. इसका मतलब ये होता है कि हमारा कोई रोल, कोई इकोलॉजिकल रोल अभी तक हमने ढूंढा नहीं है, या हमारा कार्बन फुटप्रिंट हो सकता है, हमारा वाटर फुटप्रिंट हो सकता है, लेकिन हम कौन सा which ecology we belong to, we don't have that. We don't know. Rather, we dominate and alter the local and now the global ecosystem cumulatively. And we do everything. Our existence is all about suit our lifestyles and make it separate. And that actually makes the Homo sapiens quite an interesting and a very selfish species. This is all about us humans. So it is a story actually hardly 40,000 years old. As you know, 40,000 years ago, out of Africa, Homo sapiens migration started. Humans spread across the world, and this age of humans or the Anthropocenes actually one way starts from there, and on the way it's also triggering now the 6th mass extinctions, which Dr. Banerjee will explain you what it is all about. But this is the story of the humans or the age of the humans. Now, another scientist told me while speaking about extinctions for a story in Down to Earth, while other species do not naturally cause extinctions, this is quite interesting. Humans currently threaten 1 million of the world's 8 million species. Now you know how disproportionate we are in size and existence, but the power of humans, destructive power of humans and the colonizing impact of humans. Now, what we know about this Anthropocenes and the age of humans? Remember, this is actually a scientific way of declaring a geological epoch. Anthropocene is the latest one, and more than 500 scientists are working on and will be taking a decision very soon. Maybe in 2-3 decades, we get to see will be the first Homo sapiens living in our generation will enter into a new geologic epoch named after us. There is no tiger epoch, there is no mammals epoch, but there is an Anthropocene. It might be that we are writing our own history. We are writing our own things. And here nobody is rewriting any history. This is pure scientific way of writing the history of the human and its existence and how it colonizing. In 2019 May, we got the first milestone in declaring this age of humans. Scientists voted for declaring the descent of the new epoch, that is Anthropocenes. And if you wonder what was the last epoch, that was called the Holocene. That started exactly 11,500 to 12,000 years ago. when we had our last ice age. It's called the Paleolithic Ice Age. That was the last time we had an ice age. The whole planet was covered with ice. The temperature dipped and it was all around ice. And if you look at it, after this, I think the Achedin, you can call it the Achedin for the humans, came. Ice started melting. Mammoths and woolly rhinoceros and all the big animals actually couldn't survive in the warm weather. Then the forest spread across the planet, and the Achedin for humans, we became sedentary. We started settled agricultures. We quit hunting and food gathering. It might be a Achedin for the humans like us, but it was not a Achedin for the planet. And we have a definition for the Anthropocene. And what is age? Another scientist. And this is the definition of the age of humans. The Anthropocene is the era of geological time during which human activity is considered to be the dominant influence on the environment, climate, and ecology of the earth. It means we have the influence, power to actually alter the natural system in the planet. And that was not the Achedin for the planet. Now look at why we are getting this Anthropocene. If Anthropocene is all about an age where you are measuring the impact or defining it as it must have been impacted by humans, look at this impact humans are having it, or the Homo sapiens. Humans are responsible for 83% of all wild mammals and 50% of all plants decline now. So we are responsible. Now we are responsible for altering 75% of land-based environment and 66% of the marine world. And humans are not just a reason for extinction of species. We also decide which species to survive and thrive. And that's quite fascinating. And as in the beginning, I said that, we don't have an ecological niche. We do everything for our, safety, for our consumptions, and for our survival. And this is what. Of the total mammals, just remember, when I say that who decide also which one will survive and thrive, look at this figure. Out of total mammals now, 60% are livestock, pigs, chicken, goats, cows, beef. 36% are pigs, and just 4% are wild animals, or the 4% just belong to that natural world. Rest are all actually colonized or triggered by human need. Similarly, look at birds. Of the total birds in the world now, on the planet, 70% are poultry chickens and other farm birds. 30% are what you see outside in that campus. The moina and the shrike and other things, that beautiful photographs, you are looking at it. But 70% are poultry chickens of the total birds population in the world now. Now the biomass of humans and livestock, as I in the beginning told, now surpass that of wild mammals. We are throwing around our weight now. And as we know, nature has many ecological services. Scientists have identified 18 critical services. So much is the impact of human on the natural environment that nature is failing to perform not able to perform 80% of the services. It means the natural ecosystems, the services they usually give us, like cleaning the air or filtering the water, they are not able to perform because human interventions and the colonization is so high. So another scientist gave me this during this part of a cover story, told me this. When I asked him, how do you visualize this age of Anthropocene? So he told me, I quote, when I do a puzzle with my daughters, there is usually an elephant next to a giraffe, next to a rhino. But if I was trying to give them a realistic sense of the world, it would be a cow, next to a cow, next to a cow, and then a chicken. And that could be regions, I think, sir, don't misjudge it with the stray cattle in Uttar Pradesh. Next. Now, this is something really interesting. If there is ever an Indian colonizer, remember the jungle fowl or the jungly murgi or murga. This jungle fowl is the great paleo grandparent of all the chickens in the planet. It went from India. It colonized the world. Now, when scientists are going to declare the Anthropocene for every geological epoch, they need some signs or symptoms or what they call the golden spikes, so that they can define and can argue that, okay, to declare it an age of human, these are the 5 or 6 influences of humans that we can give you as evidence for the impact of humans on the planet. There are many things, but the biggest sign are the broiler chicken. They are using it to declare the human age or the Anthropocene. This broiler chicken is completely human engineered. It doesn't have any DNA link with the jungle fowl or the jungly murga. It's completely engineered. Millions of years after the broiler chicken bones that you must have thrown in the AETI canteen after consuming, it becomes fossil, and the scientists at that point of time pick up that fossil. They will say that it was a creature created by humans. It's no more a natural one. And this is one of the signs that scientists are saying. So this is the impact of actually human intervention. It's broiler chicken, we know, for consumptions. So it's actually grown for meat. And everything is engineered for this. So there are other signs as well, like the nuclear dust. Plastic is another sign they are seriously thinking. So by November, we'll get to see the 5 most prominent signs of human intervention so that they can declare the age of humans. And one of them will be the broiler chickens. One of them could be the plastic. One of them could be the nuclear dust. Now, so this is basically towards the end of it and setting the agenda. Why we should be worried about extinction? This life on the planet is always, it's a very random coalition of evolution, multiplication, and extinction of new species. And as Dr. Banerjee will explain you, we have a history of extinction. More or less, we see that every 100 million years, we see an extinction. And an extinction usually lasts for 50,000 to 2.76 million years or 27 lakh years. And we might be into the 6th one. But if we just put it together, scientists have given an estimate. Since the planet evolved, life on the planet evolved, 99% of all the organisms that have ever lived on the earth are extinct. And new species are evolving at the same time. The last or the latest extinction is called the Cretaceous Extinction. And we all know these extinctions because we are fascinated by the extinctions of dinosaurs. And that was the last extinctions happened, mass extinction. But from every extinction, you take a lot of time to come back with the biodiversity that we see at every point of time. From that dinosaurs kind of thing, this Cretaceous extinction, it took 20 million years or 200 lakh साल लगा अभी का सिचुएशन के लिए. और उस टाइम पे 75% ऑफ प्लांट एंड एनिमल स्पीसीज एक्सटिंक्ट हो गए थे. So अभी का होता है तो if you just use the extinctions of last extinctions and if you talk about the current extinctions, to get back to the biodiversity level age of now, after the mass extinction, which is the 6th extinction we are talking about, it will take 8 lakh human generations. So it means it's another 8 lakh human generations and almost like 20 million years. It will take the planet to actually get back to a biodiversity scenario age of now, the one we are losing now. And there is a figure to it. 1 million species could go extinct within the next decade. And as Dr. Banerjee will definitely explain you what it means. And this is basically was my introduction to this whole age of humans and the extinctions. And Dr. Banerjee will give you the more interesting aspect to the extinction and how and where it is happening. Thank you very much.
Let me have a big hand for Richard. Well, Dr. Banerjee, the floor is yours.
Okay, hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, thank you so much. So, at the outset, I'd like to thank Dr. Sunita Narayan, Director General of CAC, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be here and present my views on the topic, which has great relevance today, especially in the scenario of the rapid way and the rapid progress which we are making, and in the scenario of sustainable development. I would like to thank the moderator of the session. I would also like to thank Richard for already setting the stage for me to speak. A very distinguished guests, luminaries, environmentalists, the media personnel, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you from Preeti Banerjee, Director Zoological Survey of India. It's indeed a matter of great satisfaction for me to join you all and share my views on this topic of the Great Extinction. The conclave is full of experts, and I'd like to share my presentations. Just a minute. Just give me a second. Is my presentation visible?
Not yet, Dr. Banerjee. Yes, now. Can you make it full screen, please? Yes.
I made it full screen. Is it available? Is it visible?
Delay. It's a delay.
There's a delay. Just wait. Maybe it will come. Otherwise, go ahead. We'll manage. There's some technical issues with this. Don't
See
worry.
it full screen?
No, it's still a presentation view, but it's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Just let me.
She's done slideshow. She's clicked it there, but it's not moving. Don't
Is
worry
it now
about
full screen?
Maybe it'll come up for a while. Go ahead. See?
Is it full screen?
No, Dr. Banerjee, it's still that presentation view. If you press the yes, can you press that again? See if it works. Otherwise, I would suggest you go ahead with this. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Done.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So it's visible full screen now?
Don't worry. Go ahead. It's fine. We will manage. Go ahead. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. So the conclave today is full of experts, and I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed all the presentations which is made on the subject matter before in the preceding 9 sessions. And I just want to kindly take out, go ahead with my next slide, which is here I'd like to begin my discussion with the sloka, Om Dwa Shanti, Antariksha Shanti.
Perfect. No, sorry, it's not moving. It's perfect now. Sorry, Dr. Banerjee. Please go ahead.
Okay. So Antariksha Shanti, Prithvi Shanti, Apa Shanti, Prashadaya Shanti. It means unto heaven be peace, unto the sky and the earth be peace. Peace be unto the water, unto the herbs and the trees be peace. This verse, as you know, emphasizes our rich heritage and traditions. India has a long history and tradition of harmonious coexistence between man and nature, and human beings have been regarded as, along with the flora and fauna, as a part of our family. This is part of the heritage and always manifests in our lifestyle as well as in our traditional practices. Indian culture and traditional practices aims at balancing contentment and worldly desire that helps pursue a path of sustainable lifestyle. We have been doing, our grandfathers have been doing, our grandfathers.
No, not audible.
Ma'am, we can't hear you.
Just a second.
No. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I don't know where I missed it.
Yes.
But anyway, so I just go back. The forest and the biodiversity are expected to play a pivotal role in natural strategies and implementation plans to achieve the objectives of international commitments such as IT targets, the UN 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, the Paris Agreement, and there are several other relevant instruments. This session on Great Extinction holds great importance in the present context and developmental aspirations of the citizens of India as well as worldwide. In this regard, it is encouraging to note that the bold steps have been undertaken by different global organizations as well as global bodies in compliance of priority actions recommended by the different global forums. Although it is a beginning and the country as a whole has a long way to go so as to contribute towards the priority requirements of the natural resource management, biodiversity conservation, environmental management, ecological restorations, and climate change mitigation, and these steps are certainly very positive. The changes are happening in combating deforestation, and gradually more and more organizations are showing evidence of natural conservation and transition. My fellow colleagues was, yes.
Dr. Banerjee, can I interrupt you? I'm sorry, there's some lag, there's some problem. I think what has happened is maybe the internet bandwidth at where you are is not so strong, so we are not able to see the slides so clearly. So what we could do, Dr. Banerjee, is as you have been so kind to send us the presentation, can we show the presentation and share the screen? And can you talk? Would that be okay with you?
Yes, that will be fine. That will be fine.
That'll be better. So if you could switch off your
Presentation.
if you could switch off your sharing, and Sukanya will show the slides. And if you could just say next. Also, if I could request you, Dr. Banerjee, in your presentation, you have a lot of introduction, but then you have a lot of discussion on the state of extinction. And I think if I could request you to sort of just give us the headlines at the beginning and then really focus on the real data that you have, which you have later in your presentation. But I will leave it to you on this. So Sukanya is now here. Can you move the slide, Sukanya? So Dr. Banerjee, are you here on the resilience point?
Yes, I'm on. Yes.
Okay. So just keep saying next, and Sukanya will keep changing the slide for you. Okay?
Okay. So, so we are talking about the biodiversity, the diversity, and the resilience. So resilience is directly related to the diversity, and more the diverse, the biodiversity is more the ecosystem. Resilience, and in face of definite externalities, disturbances such as population, pollution, invasive species manifestations, or even climate change. This is very similar to the composition of a city. The more the diverse, the more the business, the more the buildings, the more secure a community becomes. The next one, Sukanya, please. Okay. So why is biodiversity important and why do you think it matters? Simply because it's a measure of the health of an ecosystem. So for an ecosystem to function, it must be able to serve different roles and provide different ecosystem services. There should be a smooth flow of energies, a smooth level of nutrients recycling, proper waste removal, as well as it should be amenable for reproduction and should be actually harnessing the reproductive capacity of all those organisms who are a part of the ecosystem. Next, Sukanya, please. If we see the relationship between biodiversity and ecosystem function, it's quite evident from this chart that in case of a type A ecosystem, any loss of biodiversity is immediately noticeable. Then the ecosystem is very fragile, whereas in case of type B ecosystems, the loss to biodiversity show little impact on ecosystem function and services until it is too late to repair it. Basically, where we are standing now, we are also in the type B ecosystem, and here we can see that most ecosystems are type B ecosystems and the loss of biodiversity is irrevocable. Sukanya, next please. Okay, so what if biodiversity is lost and then absolutely lost? The permanent loss of a species makes it harder for all species to survive because the linkages amongst them to function as an ecosystem is lost. The term extinction is a permanent loss of species, and the loss of one species risks the survival of other species which are there in the ecosystem. So loss of one species can also lead to the collapse of the ecosystem. Species which are classified as keystone species, if these species are lost to the entire ecosystem, will be destroyed immediately. Next one, please. Okay. So what exactly is extinction? Extinction is a process through which a species or high tech.
Ma'am, we can't hear you. Ma'am, we are not able to hear you. Yeah. We are not able to hear you. Can you try the other connection? Yeah, it's working now.
Okay, it's working now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, this internet is so difficult to handle. And I'm just losing track of what I was saying 5 minutes back. Anyway, so we were discussing extinction. So where a lineage has changed in such a way that a new daughter species is recognized, the extinction of the original parent species may also be called a pseudo-extinction. The new and the original species are known as chronospecies, and this is an absolute natural process. The next one, please. Okay, so what are the major causes of most extinction events are likely to have been caused by a combination of factors. The postulated consequences of an asteroid strike that caused the Cretaceous KT mass extinction included acid rains, widespread fires, climate cooling due to dust and smoke, earthquakes, increasing volcanic activity elsewhere in the world, and a tsunami. And that is an enormous tidal wave, we all know that. The aforementioned consequences would have caused ecological disruption, leading to further extinctions. Some previously postulated causes of mass extinctions may be unlikely or even impossible. A supernova explosion by a nearby gamma ray burst, or biological causes. Extinction occur when environment of a species changes faster than the species can adapt. In other words, a species adaptations are no longer sufficient in allowing the species to acquire and compete for the resources. So extinction can occur naturally, as we know, and it can also come up, as Richard had highlighted before, for the other causes. So extinctions can be local, widespread, or global. For example, the Can we go to the next one? Okay, the extinction can be local, widespread, or global. For example, the cheetah is in India but not in Africa. The wildlife, the woodland caribou are now extinct in America but are prevalent in a particular parts of America but are prevalent in the parts of North America. Next one, please. Next one.
Yeah, just.
Okay. So since we are already onto the phase of extinction, why not discuss the 5 big five? They are actually commonly known as the big 5, and we are now onto the 6th of mass extinction. The automation
There's some background noise, ma'am.
Something is going. There's a background noise.
No, now it's fine.
Okay. The Permian Triassic, the end Triassic extinction, the Cretaceous Tertiary, and the Holocene extinction. Next one, please.
Ma'am, we can't hear you. Ma'am, are you able to hear us? I'm just going to switch off your video. She'll be joining back. I think she's just left the meeting. She'll join back.
Yeah, that's the only model we use. Richard, are you on? Richard,
Yeah, I am here.
Richard, do you have?
Dr. Banerjee's number. I have the number. I have phone. Wait, what? Yeah, please.
It went off, did it? The line. I mean, one option would be people, for a very long presentation, we can ask that we can review the presentation.
Yeah.
And let her give us any highlights or quick words. That's it. Because with slides are just going and I know. She has to.
Actually, we can disconnect it. So I'm giving.
Yeah.
The alternate option is to speak on phone and she puts it in from the microphone because I think the bandwidth is the issue. I'm giving to Shivana.
I think she is joining already. She has just sent a message.
We are joining. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute.
Dr. Banerjee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it that?
As the line is very bad, Dr. Banerjee, one option would be that we ask you a few, if you could focus on really some of the big takeaways for the group here are how do you as the head of ZSI see the issue of extinction in India? And what are the species and the issues that concern you? And where are the data gaps or what are the challenges that you as a scientist are facing today? If I can ask you that question and maybe instead of the presentation, if you could reply and we could at least hear you, that would be good for us to see, even if we can't see you. Huh? So, is she online?
There is one connection
Just
here.
1 minute, Dr. Banerjee, we're trying to connect you. We can do that. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. So if you can't connect, one thing could be we'll have you on the phone and we will connect the phone to the microphone. So if you can do that, let me just call someone. Rakinder, ये किसका phone है? ये तो sir का phone है. Sir, should we use your phone?
Sir. I think she speaks on phone at the.
But we can use your phone, sir.
Yeah.
So,
Should we just it is audible?
Can you call? No, this is Janto's phone. Can you speak, Dr. Banerjee? Let's see if you're audible now.
Yes, I can speak.
Can you hear her?
Or can I just read you our presentation?
Can everybody hear Dr. Banerjee? Dr. Banerjee, please speak.
Yes, I am Dr. Banerjee.
She has to switch off her. Yeah, Richard, please go ahead.
Can I just, on behalf of Dr. Banerjee, I read the slides and question answer, we can take it to the phone. If Sukanya can make the presentation.
Richard, I think the best is not to do that. I think let's hear Dr. Banerjee. We are privileged to have her with us. So what we'll do is that I'm just going to call her, Richard, on another phone.
Okay.
Dr. Banerjee can switch off her system and then let us just have a conversation. Is that okay with everybody? Have a conversation with her because it's really nice to hear her. So let's do that. So if you could just tell her that also. Now she can be seen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's switch this on.
Oh, she's in a different place. Good.
This is becoming a real challenge.
This is no presentation.
No presentation? Okay, all right.
Please, no presentation. So, Dr. Banerjee,
Yes, please, go ahead.
we are requesting that if we could do this conversation rather than the presentation, because with all the uncertainty of the bandwidth, we may lose you again. And we want to use this opportunity to understand from you as a head of ZSI, and as somebody who really has spent her life on this issue. How do you see the issue of extinction in India? What are the issues that concern you the most? The species that concern you the most? If we can really discuss that with you. And so that is my question to you, and the floor is yours now, Dr. Banerjee. Now, Dr. Banerjee, you're on mute. Just get your mute off. Yes, perfect. Should be fine now.
I'm online. I think you can hear me now, okay?
Yes, we can hear you. If you can put your phone off, it'll be good because otherwise there'll be too many lines. Perfect.
Yes. That I have disconnected. So
Yeah.
the issue is that we in Zoological Survey of India, as you know, that we are the institution which is designated by the government of India for conducting the faunal documentation of our entire country. And as you are well aware, that we have around 5.5 million collection, which is the collection holding, and an institute like us, and these collection holdings are silent witness to biodiversity, extinct and extant. Our collections are basically can highlight over a time and space how biodiversity was thriving, what is the condition of biodiversity now, and we can also predict using GIS-based technologies and how it can be in future. So, Sunita, if you just once more go ahead with the question that what exactly you want me to, because since the slides are not there, I'm using a bit of a queue of it. So we know that as present 2020 reported that we had 1,02,718 species as of now recorded in the whole country. That is the 2020 data. We are going to provide the 2021 data in 2022, which will be there will be an increase over it. as considering the rates of extinction, what you're talking about, because we work on a lot of, starting from protozoa to mammalia, we work on a lot of groups. So what we have seen over a period of time, that this level of loss of species, I cannot just up and say that it is getting into the extension mode. The loss of species which we have encountered over a period of maybe 50 years, 20 years, or maybe some, as way back as 100 years, the loss of species today is very evident, and it is very easily identifiable from the small groups, specifically the insects in a forested landscapes, the small protozoans in an aquatic, the cladocerans, the zooplanktons in aquatic bodies, and in the marine areas, if you go and check back, the diversity which we had, which we had in the marine fauna, and what we are finding today, it is almost what we are basically experiencing is almost, what would you say, half of the diversity which we used to get when we were on our previous collection trips, possibly when I had joined. Like, say, for example, I had joined ZSI in 1998. My first survey was to Arunachal Pradesh, and and 2001, what I surveyed and what I collected from Arunachal Pradesh. Today, when I'm going back to the same areas, I'm collecting basically 1/5 of what I could find before, or sometimes even 1/10. And interesting enough, what is happening is that the species which are more, I work on insects, so I can just simply give you a simple example. The more anthropocentric species or the synanthropic insects are more available, their abundance have increased, as opposed to those which were basically rare or difficult to find in the previous occasion. So suppose we had been working on some kind of a rare species, we are trying to go back and find out its type locality because we have lost its type specimens. We are trying to go back and to the type locality to designate, to collect a specimen and designate it as a new type. It is near impossible nowadays. Because what is happening is that the locality itself is devastated. So that there is no locality left over to go back and collect. So this is one thing which we have experienced for quite a number of specimens, where the type specimens may have been replaced or may have been lost, and we were trying to find out and designate a new type. There we found that this was near impossible. So if we go back to the larger animals, so there, it is well known, and I guess everybody knows about it, that we are going through a rapid phase of rapid extinction. Why we are saying? Because the loss of species over the last last 100 years have been so huge compared to what had happened in the previous sets of extinction phases, that is what, as Richard had said, triggered the term and using the term Anthropocene today. So, and some of the species which would need immediate conservation, there are quite a few of them which we have been flagging into the flagging, and we have also flagged it to be included in the Wildlife Protection Act. We've included 4 or 5 new species of fishes. We have included at least 2 turtles in the Schedule 1. We've included around 12 reptiles in the Schedule 2. So these are the things which we have flagged as to be included in the Wildlife Protection Act for basically for conservation purposes. Because there is another effect. What I want to also flag, that this rate of loss of habitat today is basically pushing the species for near loss of its own identity as well as own areas for survival, which I guess is not unknown to you, because this is what you have been discussing over the last few sessions. And what I would also like to flag is that when Richard was saying that particular species which is tending towards extinction, near extinct species, honestly, I will not be able to flag that now, because we have certain limitations of bringing out the names in public. And until and unless that is actually published, I cannot be discussing or giving you names in a media conclave that these are going towards extinction, because you have to please excuse my position and my responsibilities as a Director of Zoological Survey of India. So once we publish this data, I guess you can access it, and that will be through proper channels and through proper forums. But it will be highly irresponsible of me if I go and say forward and say, okay, these species are in the verge of extinction in our country. You have to basically forgive me on that.
No. First, Dr. Banerjee, I think that would be asking, that's absolutely would be unfair of us. But you have told us so much. You have told us very clearly that as somebody, and really we value what you've told us, that as somebody who works on insects, and your area of work, you yourself are saying that when you go back to the region from when you came first and you go back now, it's 1/5. You're also saying that how you are finding this across. So I think as environmentalists, ZSI is very much part of the family of environmentalists. I think we are all deeply concerned to see this rate of extinction, and as you said, the accelerated rate of extinction. What I'm going to do now is to get open questions to you and use this opportunity to get questions. And then if you can interact with us, I think it'll be a much more fruitful time. So yes, please.
Go ahead.
So can you introduce yourself to Dr. Banerjee so she knows?
Hello, ma'am. I'm Sudha from the Times of India in Cochin. Now, you mentioned for conservation purposes, you are looking at 4 to 5 new species of fishes, 2 turtles, and 12 reptiles. So, when you're talking about in that stage, what are these new fishes, 4, 5 fishes that you are, and these turtles? That marine, obviously, the marine is one main element of your conservation program. Is it a very big cause for concern in the wake of these climate change and sea surge and related even? And another thing is there is a myth that if there is any change in the insects, the presence or absence of insects in the land or the forest or any areas, is that an indication that something's going wrong with nature?
So are insects an indicator species, Dr. Banerjee?
Yes, they are. As I said before, as even Richard was discussing, the term Anthropocene. The insects we have, once we were been working on this, particularly this group I want to flag, since you have been asking this, that insects, when we have been working, when we have been surveying, we were working on a particular group of insects. I worked on a group of insects which are flies. And when we were going to the inside the forest, we find the more generalist species. The diversity is dwindling, but the abundance of particular species which are human loving or synanthropic species, those are basically, the abundance is increasing over a period of time. Because the insects are very small bodied, they have small life cycles, and their adaptability, their survivability and their adaptability is high. So they become a kind of indicator. We ourselves, when we go and say, we can basically distinguish an area, whether suppose an area which had a small water body or a kind of a swamp in a particular area where we had visited, there was a swamp. After 5 years, when I'm going back to the same district, the swamp has dried out, and there have been small chai ka dukan baith gaya udhar. Whatever I collected from that area, nothing is there other than flies, and other than those green and blue bottle flies, some sarcophagic flies, and some mosquitoes and some small drosophila. So that is the difference which I could see in a very small period of time, which was just 5 years, and in a very small area with a very small swamp. So this is basically explains, as you said, that indicators, yes. So when we are moving around in a wider circle, we had recorded fox, we had recorded some fishing cats. We had recorded some normal foxes were available. They were also lost. We could not find them. And when we set the camera traps, nothing was there. So this is a kind of, what would I say, a indicator, as Sunita was saying, that there is a gradual loss of habitat and a loss of diversity. So, however, this work we cannot say that, okay, it's going to be extinct or it's going towards extinction, because extinction is over a large span of time, and we would need more concerted research on that entire period to decide whether it is going. It may be heading towards extinction, but category on record, I cannot say that, okay, fine, this species is heading towards extinction or something like that. As you said regarding the...
But Dr. Banerjee, that is very fair. You cannot say because you don't have the time scale. But I think what you have definitely told us that there is a loss that you are seeing.
Loss. There is a loss.
So
There is
that
a
we
loss.
can definitely say you are finding, and the loss is quite massive. We are not talking
Massive.
about one species going or two, you're talking about 1/5 of what you had seen, you are seeing now, which is tremendous. Yeah, I'll take
I mean,
you.
the diversity, it's 1/5 of the diversity which we had seen before.
Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Rishika. I'm a freelance reporter from Bangalore. In 2019, ZSI updated its amphibian list, and I reported about it. So, in that report, almost 19% of the species were tagged as data deficient. And I think 39%, you said, you meaning ZSI said conservation status is not known. So, overall, about 58% came down to gray zone. So, we have no idea. Then when I asked a researcher, what does this mean if 60% of amphibians are in gray zone? He said it is very likely these are in the threatened category. So what is ZSI doing about data deficiency and lack of resource to actually undertake proper thorough surveys?
For the data deficient, we are taking it up actually biogeographic zone wise. Say, for example, the amphibians are maximally reported. We are working on the Western Ghats and we are trying to collect data, as well as for some of the species which we are collecting. We are also working on the different aspects of it, their ecology, their behavior, their seasonality, and we are trying to tag it or along with the climatic path so that we can also link it with the climatic variables which are basically affecting their zone, their range, their extent and their extent and their habitat. So we are working on the data deficient categories. I mean, not all the data deficient, please understand that not all the data deficient are threatened categories. So had they been that, then the Protection Act would have more amphibians than what is thought about.
You want, Richard, you wanted to come in at this point, Richard? You're on mute, Richard. Huh?
Yeah, I think, yes, Dr. Banerjee is giving you the more scientific evaluation and things. But if you look at the first ecosystem assessment done by the IPBES, again, multilateral agencies, and we got it in 2020. They say that 1 million species are under extinctions. And extinctions, as Dr. Banerjee has also defined that, it's defined as 75% of all species over a short geological period of 2.8 million years going actually vanishing. So the first global ecosystem assessment pointed out what Dr. Banerjee is also indicating, the very fast and rapid decline in the number of species and being pushed into it. And in case of India also, I think she has already mentioned it. And if you come back to this, in one of our slides that we couldn't see, it's called the background extinction rate or the historical extinction rate, which is basically, one species per million in few years kind of things. That rate has accelerated. So I have a questions for Dr. Banerjee to inform us, what is this background extinction rate and what we are seeing it now in the current page. So that's my question.
Okay. So Dr. Banerjee, background extinction rate, and what do we see now? What happened? No, she's gone again. I think her line is gone. Okay, I think trying to connect with Port Blair is a bit tough. I think we're asking for too much in this very interconnected India, okay? Port Blair is still different. अभी इंडिया वहां पहुंची नहीं है, ठीक है? तो मेरा अपना सजेशन है सुकन्या, we should thank her. Let us call her, thank her. Richard, we're also thanking you. But we are also missing you enormously.
I
Okay?
miss more than anybody else, I think. Could have been
Yeah.
the audience and
So you need to really get yourself well again, so that we've all been talking about millions of things we're going to do together. So please get well so that we are back again and engaged with us on all this. And we will I will just speak to Dr. Banerjee as the next session starts. I will speak to her and thank her as well. But fascinating. I think if we can, this whole issue of extinction may have a lot of complexity, but I feel it's like the issue on climate change. When we started talking about climate change 30 years ago, it just seemed hard. Just call her, just speak to her.
Hi, Vicky. Just hold for a second. I'm just giving this.
I know. So we will organize, everyone is very excited about what you are saying. So what I want to meet that another day when you're back in Calcutta, we can perhaps organize a small webinar and call everyone and discuss this issue with you, so that we can actually take this forward, because we really want to understand this further, Dr. Banerjee. But thank you so much for making the effort. Really great. Yeah, we will, but we will organize another meeting with you, because we want to hear you. Okay. No problem. We understand. You're in Port Blair, we understand. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think this point that I made to her, I just want to say we will take it forward, because I do feel that extinction is an issue which, like climate change, when we started talking about it, long time. And when you talk about these millions of species and epochs, and it kind of you lose it. But on the other hand, the scale of what Richard is saying and what we are, she is a government official. She can't tell you that this species is extinct. She can't. But she has, in her own way, told you very clearly that there is a massive loss of species, and the species that are now growing are exactly what Richard said. She used a word which I must learn from Richard, which seemed like a word like, humanized species, something about, there is, I think, quite technical word they have picked up now. What did they call? Human living insects, something.
I'll stop the live streaming now.
You can keep it on. It's okay. We are going to the next. This session we are closing. Yeah. So thank you, Richard. We are going to start the next session, and you get well quickly. Please. Thank you. So what we have now is note